The OnePlus 13R is so good that there's really only one thing that would keep me from recommending it over the OnePlus 13. Let's talk about it. So real quick, let's rewind to last year with the OnePlus 12 and the 12R. From a physical standpoint, there's a pretty obvious difference between the two. The 12 has glass on the back, which makes it feel and look more premium, whereas the 12R has a smooth, glossy finish, the same finish you see on a lot of budget-friendly phones. But this time, they've upgraded the 13R with the glass back. Not only does it feel better, you also don't have to worry about fingerprints. Now, before we get too far, the 13R comes in right around $600, whereas the 13 comes in at $900 to $1,000, so it's about a $200 to $300 difference. As far as first impressions, the 13R feels very similar to the 13. If you close your eyes and pick up both phones, it's not that obvious which one is more expensive. Now, after spending some time with the phones, you will pick up on some differences. For example, the 13R is a little thicker, whereas the 13 feels a bit more sleek. Also, the sides of the 13R have a matte finish, whereas the 13 has kind of a polished aluminum look and feel. And then there's the quad curved display on the 13, which isn't present on the 13R. There's that very subtle curve around the edges that blends directly into the sides of the phone. Aside from that, the two look and feel very similar. They're both easy to hold thanks to the flat sides, and with the 13R being slightly thicker, it's honestly easier to handle since there's more surface area. On the front of the 13R, you've got 7th generation Gorilla Glass to protect from drops and scratches, and it's IP65 certified, so not quite the same IP69 rating as the 13, but it can still withstand the occasional splash of water. And when things do get a little wet, the 13R has Aqua Touch 2.0, just like the 13, which makes it a lot easier to use when the screen is wet. There's also that dedicated glove mode, which helps you use the phone with wool or sheepskin gloves, which is perfect for those colder months of the year. The display is a 6.7-inch 120Hz Pro XDR display, which on paper is a little smaller compared to the 13. The resolution is also slightly lower, but when you compare the two side by side, it's not exactly a huge difference. Now, if you stare long enough, the 13 does have the nicer display, but the 13R definitely holds its own. In terms of peak brightness, the two seem to be evenly matched, so no concerns whether you're indoors or outdoors on a bright sunny day. Now, if you're somebody that transfers a lot of files back and forth between your computer, whether it's photos, videos, one thing to keep in mind is that the port on the 13R is a USB 2.0 port, which has slower transfer speeds compared to the USB 3.2 port on the 13. Now, on the very top of the device, something you'll notice is that they still include an IR remote, which is actually really cool. So the next time you misplace the remote to your TV, the 13R and the 13, either way you go, they got you covered. Now, moving things over to the internals, this time around you've got 12 gigs of RAM instead of 8 and 256 gigs of storage, paired with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chip, the exact same chip used in the OnePlus 12 and many other flagship phones from just a year ago. Needless to say, this is a highly capable device. From gaming to running multiple apps at once, there's not a whole lot that can really slow this thing down. And even though the 13 has the latest Snapdragon 8 Elite chip and the option of 16 gigs of RAM, as far as usability, it doesn't feel like you're sacrificing performance by going with the 13R. You're also getting Oxygen OS 15, which is smooth, it's easy to use, and you're getting all the latest AI features like Circle to Search. This can help you get information on anything you come across when you're scrolling. You get all the AI writing tools. So for example, you have the option to reformat or reword text, whether it's a note, email, a text message, and there's the option to summarize text, which can help you digest large documents quickly. There's even the AI photo editing tools. One of my favorite is the reflection eraser, which helps remove any reflections that might have been captured after taking a photo through glass. From there, let's talk biometric security. Just like the 13, you have the option of face unlock. You also have a fingerprint sensor, which is easy to use. It's fast, it's accurate. But the one thing that bothers me is the placement. The sensor is much lower compared to the 13. For me, I feel like the placement on the 13 is much more natural. I feel like it's where your thumb naturally lands when the phone's in your hand. The 13R requires a more awkward thumb angle, which occasionally does impact the accuracy. Now, as a workaround, you could easily just rely on the face unlock or use a pattern or a numeric security option. But as someone that almost exclusively uses the fingerprint sensor on every device, it is something that's bothered me just slightly. I'm sure there's a reason as to why the sensor is where it is, but if there was one piece of feedback that I would give to OnePlus, it would be to move the fingerprint sensor just a little bit higher. From there, let's go ahead and talk cameras. As far as the main camera, it uses a 50 megapixel Sony sensor, and it takes some really impressive shots. Great colors, great detail. It even gives you 2x optical zoom for further reach without losing quality. The 50 megapixel telephoto helps capture some great looking portraits. Along with the 16 megapixel selfie camera, I would feel just fine uploading any of these straight to social media. As far as taking photos from a distance, that's where the 13 has a pretty significant advantage over the 13R. It's got way more reach and it does a much better job of cleaning up the images. A few other limitations with the 13R include no option to record video in ultra wide, no 4K 60 frames a second, no HDR Dolby Vision, and no 4K selfie video, only 1080p. For basic point and shoot photo ops, the 13R is perfectly fine, but if you need something with more versatility, that's where the 13 makes more sense. And then we got to talk battery life. So you're getting a 6,000 milliamp hour battery, which is huge. You should have no issues getting through an entire day, but just in case you need to top things off, you have 80 watt fast charging, which can get you a full charge in roughly half an hour. Now, the power brick that ships with the 13R is a 55 watt charger, but if you want to invest in a faster setup, the phone is capable of 80 watt charging. Something else to keep in mind is that there's no wireless charging on the 13R, whereas the 13 supports 50 watt wireless charging. All things considered, the 13R is incredible for the price. Like I said, the only thing I'm not really a fan of is the placement of the fingerprint sensor, and as we discussed, that can easily be worked around. The other differences compared to the 13 are very subtle. Ultimately, if you're looking for the best bang for buck, if you prioritize performance, you want up-to-date features, but you don't necessarily need every single bell and whistle, the 13R makes a lot of sense. I'm curious to know what you guys think. Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Of course, if you're interested in the 13R, the link will be in the description box below. If you found the video to be helpful, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up. Also consider subscribing to the channel. Aside from that, I appreciate you guys as always, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.